The story of James and Annie Caldwell serves as one example of how the Civil War affected so many relationships during its wrath. The Caldwells' relationship began shortly after James and Annie met in the late 1840s, and they married in the winter of 1853. Annie was significantly younger than James, but their bond strengthened over the 7 years of marriage leading up to the Civil War.
It was not atypical for older men to marry younger women back in that day. However, Annie married a man 20 years older than she, and when he joined the military, he was 48 years old, she 28. She had no clue at that moment that he was that much older than she, and it's my understanding that she didn't discover that truth until after he was gone.
As a call for men was heard throughout Pennsylvania, Caldwell enlisted in the Union forces. On June 6, 1861, Caldwell's company was called to duty and left Carlisle. From that time, after his departure until his death, James and Annie exchanged nearly 200 letters, which discussed their love for each other and their thoughts on the war. The last letter Annie wrote to James on September 18, 1862, shows how desperately the two longed for each other as the war grew on.
My husband, my own dear husband, this will prove but a poor apology for a letter because I am so much dispirited in not having heard from you for so long a time. 2 weeks that I cannot write, neither can I do anything till I hear from you. I have written you regularly. I hope you have received some letters. I would give worlds, had I them, for one letter from you this night. Indeed, I am so utterly miserable. I have never felt so hopeless before. I expect you will think me foolish, my dear husband, but indeed I can't help it. I do want so much to hear about you. I do wish I was with you. Oh, this terrible war, how much bitterness and misery it is creating. This is a sad letter, but it is the index of my feelings. My husband, may heaven spare your life through all of these struggles. Oh, how fervently I pray for your return. Good night, my darling husband. Ever your affectionately and devotedly attached wife, Annie H. Caldwell.
James was never able to read that letter, as he was killed a day before the letter had been written at the historic Battle of Antietam in Maryland. Every letter that Annie had written James was found with his body. He had carried the letters with him at all times during battle, making him feel more secure with Annie's words close to him. Annie would never remarry, but went on to continue serving her family and her country. The letters shared between Annie and James depict a family who sacrificed a great deal to protect what they believed in.
This man had everything. He had 4 children, a lovely wife, and a successful law practice. He lost it all, and she lost him and a lot of their lifestyle. But it did not defeat Annie. She came back to press the government to, in her opinion, abide by their responsibility to educate her 2 sons, and they both became successful graduates of the Naval Academy. So this woman, she rose to much higher heights after her husband was gone than she might have ever done in his shadow.